That's what I'm talking about, son. Get you some of that daggone pie.
Woo-hoo! Looky there. There's your bug-eyed big one right there.
Getting started. We're getting started.
Here's what I'm talking about. Gosh dang gorilla.
Let's go, baby. Straight meat. God, look at that.
Tackle Warehouse has been the premier online tackle shop since 2003, with a huge selection of not only the latest and greatest from the biggest brands, but the hard-to-find regional specialties as well. Tackle Warehouse. Click, save, fish.
All right, welcome in everybody into the show. This is the BAM Pod, and I'm your host, Big Ed. And on the line tonight, I've got a gentleman that has been tearing up California. He's had top threes, he's had top five, a top 10, wins. He's been doing it all out there on the water, and he's been doing it local. And right now, he's working on his Pro-Am events so he can make it to the Super 60 that the BAM Trail is going to be putting on next year. Let's welcome in Mr. Ryan Hall. Ryan, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, you know, we kind of talked, we've known each other for quite a while now. We talked a little bit about you coming on to the show. This is that time of year, you know, and you've done some really good events, or had some really good events. You've qualified, you made some top 10s, made some top 3s, made some top 5s. You've won some events, some in the team stuff. Now you're on the Pro-Am stuff, and you're really working hard to, you know, to make your way in this sport and become one of the top pros out here. You're on the right path. And, you know, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about fall fishing. You know, we just got off with Mark Daniels Jr. We were talking about some of the transitions and how hard they are this type of year. And, you know, you being out here fishing Shasta, Oroville, Clear Lake, the Delta, some of our big waters, some of our big stuff that we do, you know, you're seeing different ways to fish, and you've learned different ways to fish. And I think that, you know, fall baits, how you approach them, how you take it on, how you take on these bodies of water, they're all a little different. And in some ways they're a little the same. I think Shasta and Oroville a lot closer together than, you know, Clear Lake and the Delta, but those are four different bodies of water, but two of them fish the same and the other two fish the same for the most part, except for the tidal thing, right?
Right.
So, you know,
right. Yeah, with the exception of the tide.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Let's break down some of your favorite fall baits. Let's tell everybody out there a little bit about how you approach some of this stuff, and let's start on some of that grass water, because I think coming up next, you know, we've got the Pro Tour for BAM is going to be on the Afterbay this weekend. And then after that, we've got a Delta tournament coming up, and I think there's a Clear Lake one coming up, a Berryessa coming up. So we've still got a few events to go. And with the exception of probably Berryessa, but it still has some grass in it too. We're talking about 3 to 4 good bodies of water that have grass. And when you're talking about grass and fall fishing, that's where I want to pick your brain a little bit, is how do you really go about seeing that and going out there and approaching that?
Yeah, I mean, so I love fishing grass. That's how I grew up fishing, you know, growing up fishing the Delta a lot. So I'm very comfortable doing it. But as far as attacking grass, I honestly fish it just like I would in the summertime in the spring. And it sounds really crazy. You know, you might change your baits up a little bit depending on their mood. But when you get around grass, and I tell this, like, especially when I speak with the high school kids, because I try to do a lot of seminars with them. The thing about grass, and that a lot of people, like a lot of them, don't understand all the time, is there's only so many ways to fish it. There's 3 ways to fish it. You can go over it, you can go around it, or you can go through it. And so I try to simplify it like that, you know. So if I want to go over it, like either I'm winding something over the top of it, whether it's the grass isn't topped out, I can wind a bladed jig like a Shock Blade Pro or a spinner bait, or even, you know, a top water over the top of it. Then if you want to go around it, that's where you can even fish your bladed jigs, your spinner baits, things like that, your lipless cranks around it. Or, you know, like my favorite way to do it is to go through it. And that's to take a big old heavy, you know, Picasso tungsten weight and drop it right through it, you know, just go punching. So grass for me, I just like to keep it simple, you know. I mean, they're either going to want to move to eat it or they're not going to want to move to eat it. And I like to figure out if they're going to move before I do anything. So, you know, when I go to a lake that I know has grass like the Delta this time of year, I'm probably going to have like 5 rods on the deck, and there's going to be, you know, a spinnerbait, a bladed jig, and a couple top waters and a punch rod, and that's it. And I'm going to figure out which one they want to eat because they're going to be in that grass, especially in the fall.
Okay.
So I like to keep it super simple like that.
What about the grass in the fall makes them really go, you know, get in there and bury up? Because when I think of fall grass fishing, I think that grass is starting to die off. I think it's, you know, it's starting to go away. But you're saying these fish are winding up and basically burying themselves up in it. What is it? What is it about the grass that really gets them in there this time of year?
Yeah, there's a lot to the grass. You know, it's a diverse ecosystem in there, and you know, trying to simplify the grass again, especially like people that don't fish a lot of grass, because I do get that question a lot. Is um, think of a grass like rocks. You know, there's points, there's coves, there's lanes. You know, there's indentations in the grass, and you got to think of it just like a rock. So the same thing these fish are doing in our deep reservoirs, or even our, you know, like lakes like Clear Lake and Berryessa, where they're going to the rock. The rocks hold heat. The grass holds heat. The rock is where the prey are moving to this time of year as the water temps cool off. The grass is where the prey is moving to this time of year. So being able to find grass, and yes, you are right. A lot of it is dying, or you're starting to lose a lot of grass, especially on these, you know, expansive grass flats, or areas in the Delta where it cools off, the current's starting to hit it, it's not liking it as much, and it's kind of thinning out. You get around that grass, and typically they're going to be in the deepest grass you can find. So they're just using that edge. You know, you know, these fish, if you think like a natural lake, they're coming from deeper water, their summer haunts, the first place they're going to stop is that outside weed line. And the first place the bait's going to stop is going to be that outside weed line, because that's the first stop sign on their way up to the shallow stuff. So that's pretty much where I start. I start on the edge, and I try to keep them honest on the edge, and then kind of work my way in and just kind of feel it out. But yeah, definitely, you know, I love the grass, but you know, choosing the right baits around the grass is very helpful. And that's why, if you noticed earlier, all those baits I mentioned, especially the bladed jig and the spinner bait, it's power, like power. Put the spinning rod down, don't mess around with that stuff, and just go power fishing. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not hearing a bunch of, you know, crankbaits and things like that being thrown out there and through that grass. I'm guessing that, you know, you're trying to, you're trying to be weedless, I guess, but at the same time, I mean, you can't. This is the grass that's out there right now. When it starts to die off, when it starts to get to, you're not really ever going to be weedless. But the average person that goes out and is like, oh, I go to Orville, then they go over to Clear Lake, and they can't throw their favorite crankbait. They can't throw this sort of thing, and that's what you're talking about right there, is trying to be around it or over it. Do you still throw big, you know, open hooked treble hooks like that around it, or is that one of those things?
Oh yeah.
Around it and over it only, don't try to get in it?
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I mean, you know, there's a time and a place for a treble hook bait or an open hook bait. You know, in regards to the treble hook baits, you know, a lipless crankbait comes, if you have the right setup, you know, you can rip in the right grass. A lot of it comes down to the right grass. You got to find good grass, but a lipless crankbait, and even certain build crankbaits come through grass really well. The one thing I've learned, you know, I'm lucky enough to work with Gamakatsu, and I've noticed that certain hook shapes, and this isn't specific to Gamakatsu, but certain hook shapes come through grass better than others. So for me, when I get around grass, I make sure I have an EWG style hook. So like, which extra wide gap, it's got that little sharper bend. It's more of a 90-degree style, you know? Those come through grass better than your standard round bend, which comes stock on a lot of hooks or on a lot of hard baits. So when I get around grass, and if I want to fish a treble hook bait around grass, I'm 100% without a doubt switching to Gamakatsu EWGs, just because they come through grass so much better. Over the last 5 or 6 years, I've really been playing with it, and I've noticed an extreme increase in my efficiency to get my baits through the grass clean, and be able to, you know, ensure my cast is fished appropriately and efficiently.
Huh. All right. I mean, I wouldn't think that hook design or hook shape makes all that much difference, but apparently it does. So, really go out there and check it when you want to get in there. Like, yeah, I love to punch that big thick grass. Now, this time of
Mhm.
year, when we're talking fall, we're talking about these transitions and you're talking about these fish going up and they're getting in there. Is it helpful that the bait is or that the grass is dying off because it now takes these vast expanses of grass and maybe shrinks them down a little bit so the fish are pushed in to very specific spots, or is it more of a if it dies off they kind of leave the area?
No, I think, these fish are going to continue to look for healthy grass. Even
Okay.
though the grass is dying and it's starting to diminish a little bit, those fish that want to be in the grass, because there are two different breeds of fish out there. I mean, especially, you take like Clear Lake, there's going to be those fish that want to be offshore and there's going to be fish that want to be up in grass.
Okay.
Those grass fish that want to be up shallow, those ones are going to continue to seek the healthiest shallow cover or what best fits their needs. So whether that be bait, the forage that's around, so they're going to continue to find it. So if you're in an area and say that grass completely, ends up being gone, look around that area in that vicinity for the next healthy areas of grass, and that's where those fish are probably going to move to. Um, and just keep them honest. That's the crazy thing about the fall, Ed, is these fish they almost turn pelagic. Just like
Oh,
an ocean fish or a spotted bass.
right.
They're strapping on the feed bag, and their one thought right now is just bulk up for winter because it's going to get real cold, and their mood's going to change quite a bit in the next 3 months.
Yeah, that's what Mark Daniels and I were talking about too, was that this transition that's going to happen. We just got off of summer, and it's something I want to ask you. One of the baits, as you come into summer and fall, we think of the frog, we think of top water bites, that sort of thing. Does it completely die off in the fall, or is there still a pretty good top water bite out there?
Oh no, I don't think it completely dies. I think it's situational.
Okay.
I mean, there'll be I mean, the thing about the fall, and this is what I love about fishing in the fall, is uh it's I don't want to say hit and miss, but it's junk fishing. You never know. Like this last weekend on Saturday, it was 90 degrees,
Right.
and then on Sunday it was 77. And we had our overnight lows dropped, the fish activity changed, it got funny, the winds picked up. So all like the fall is so crazy because your environmental changes happen so rapidly. It happens overnight. And you kind of just got to adapt to it. And I really like it because I feel like I'm pretty versatile. So being able to adapt just right on the fly. The fall is a time where you cannot go out with preconceived notions. You can have a game plan and that's great, but if your game plan's likely to change by 8:30,
Oh,
that's what I like about it. It just happens so quick, and it reminds me so much of baseball. Growing up playing baseball, it's like, you could think like, here's how I'm going to attack a hitter when you're calling pitches or whatever, but
right.
your game plan can shift all of a sudden. A couple guys get on, you got to change things up. So you just kind of got to adapt on the fly and just read the room.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that happens with people when they go out fishing and these transitions, these fall, going into fall, going into winter. I feel like everybody has that specific bait or that one thing they really like to throw. And when that doesn't work, it's about making that change that you're just talking about, and
Mm.
I think people really shy away from making that change. Is there a bait that you throw like, what, I just love doing this to catch fish, or are you specifically just I don't care what they're eating, I'm going to throw what they want? I mean, what is that one thing this time of year that you love to throw? Or, hey, no, I don't care. I'm going out there and just whatever those fish want me to throw is what I want them to throw. I don't want to force feed them.
Yeah, I mean, it changes with every body of water. We were
Uh-huh.
talking about grass lakes.
Right.
If I'm on a grass lake, I really want them to bite the punch rod. Like,
Okay.
one, I love doing it, but two, I really feel like if there's a punch bite, I always have a chance to win. If they're gonna bite the punch, I'm gonna have a shot to be right up there in the mix. you
Okay.
know. So that would be my go-to. But when you get to a reservoir,
Yeah, you go to a
I
nice
just want to
big
wind.
open. You get back well, you get to nice open water, like you go from Clear Lake or you go from the Delta, and then you come to Shasta or you come to Oroville, right? Those are
Mhm.
very, very different waters right there. And yeah, I
Right.
mean, let's go to now. You talked about before a little power fishing. Hey, I'm picking up my
Mhm.
spinnerbait. I'm picking up my chatterbait. Do you still throw those on those non-grass lakes like that, or do you
Oh
all of
yeah.
a sudden pick up the spinning rod and go to work?
Hey folks, Randall and I want to talk to you real quick about choosing the right electronics mount for your bass boat.
Mark and I have been partnered with Bass Boat Technologies from the very beginning, and we know the quality and effort that Van Foster has put into this company.
Custom, that's the one thing that I think about whenever I think of Bass Boat Technologies. Van Foster has spent years, not hours, years perfecting these mounts. He works with just about every bass boat company out there, most models for every bass boat company out there. He has spent the time working on these bass boats. So what you get is a custom fitted mount, not some mass produced universal mount for every bass boat out there. Van makes them custom fit for your bass boat.
Bass Boat Technologies also makes a lot of other custom parts. Seat pedestal plugs, tool holders, steering wheel spacers, and battery trays are all made with the same attention to detail that Bass Boat Technologies is known for.
Bass Boat Technologies is a vital part of our livelihood, and it's very important to your overall boating experience also.
Absolutely, and that's why we choose Bass Boat Technologies. Check them out at bassboattech.com. You'll be glad you did.
No, I'm definitely power fishing on lakes,
Okay.
on the reservoirs. Baits change a little bit. You start getting out at Oroville, Folsom, Shasta, places like that. I want to wind it. I want to keep moving. I want to cover water. So that's when you're going to see, I'm going to have keeping the A rig honest. I'm going to be throwing a spinner bait if I'm going to be cranking, whether it's cranking from, 7 to 12 or if it's 15 to 20. I want to be winding something.
Okay.
But like I said, everything changes so fast, and their mood changes, environmental circumstances change. On a reservoir, it seems like if you don't have the right scenario, the power bite kind of goes away, and that's when you have to start relying on your more finesse techniques, your bottom presentations. A lot of guys nowadays are using forward facing sonar like the Mega Live or the Live Scope or Active Target. But keeping that out of the picture, I think, from our average angler, it's going to be, a lot of guys are going to rely heavily on the drop shot. It's a great bait, especially when you get these clear skies and clear water. Can't really go wrong with the drop shot, or, even a Ned rig or a Nico rig, or, shaky head. So if I can wind it, if I can catch them on 20-pound line or heavier, I'm doing that. But, there is a time and a place, and if they don't want to do it, then I guess I'm going to end up shaking the spinning rod,
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something there, the A rig, and I always think of an A rig as that pre-spawn to maybe spawn slightly past, and then I don't really pick it up that much after that. Do you have a lot of luck and faith in it when it comes to fall fishing?
Yeah, I like it. I like it when it gets a little colder, So right now we're in that transition, and they will bite it now. Like, without a doubt, they will bite it. I mean, these fish are transitioning. These reservoir fish are, especially spotted bass, are getting all over the bait this time of year. So, I mean, that's all an Alabama rig is, it's mimicking a ball of bait. I think in my personal experience, I like it better once we get into late fall, November, middle November, end of November, December. That's when I really start liking it. But you can catch them on it now, without a doubt.
Is there anything specific you like to run on that? Kitech kind of thing, or is there something different, or what is it that you throw on your Alabama rigs that you really find success with?
The softs I throw, obviously the little paddle tail soft swim baits, Kitech's for sure. The G-Rat thin swim's actually like a sneaky one. it's different. It looks different. It's a tighter wobble. So the G-Rat Thin Swim, compared to like a Kitech that's real wide, they're different. For me though, I find more of an impact on the rig itself.
Okay.
I throw one A rig, but I'll make a modification to it every now and again. I throw the bait ball pulse 99.99999% of the time. It's made by Picasso Lures. It's a thinner wire, and it's they call it invis wire, so it actually doesn't show up as much in the water, so they don't see it, but also it flares really well.
Okay.
So when you start getting fish that are non-committal or biting it funny, mixing in that flare where popping your reel and that whole rig flares up and expands and contracts really quick helps trigger the bites. So typically though, the bait selection, as long as your bait is the size of the bait and the general color is right, and for the most part, any shad imitator is just
Right.
fine. But then it, other than that, the one modification I make to the bait ball pulse is blades or no blades. They come with blades, but sometimes I'll cut them off.
Okay.
But other than that, I find the biggest impact is actually with the effect of that A-rig and not so much with the baits.
All right. Now, we're in California and we're fishing these bodies of water. How's your swim bait game? As far as like the big swim baits and stuff. And this time of year, is it something you would throw?
I am not a huge swim bait fisherman. I do keep them honest with it. I will tell you that. I'm confident in doing so. Probably not as confident as I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, and especially in these BAM pro-ams. It's ideally if you make the championship day, it's a 3-day event, and other than Clear Lake, you're really not going to catch 3 limits. 15 bass all on a swimmer. So I mix it in. There's a few baits I keep honest. I threw a big boot tail, like an osprey at Shasta, but didn't work out. Then when I get around the grass, like at the Delta, I threw the Optimum Baits Boom Boom a lot.
Okay.
But the glide bait's also a big one. I know a lot of guys throw it at Clear Lake. I'm not as confident in it as I'd like to be. However, I know when the situation presents itself, it is a tool that's in my bag. It's not my strongest tool, but it is a tool.
Yeah. Talking about that coming up, you've been fishing, you've got a good partner in Chris, and, you guys have gone out there and you've had success, and now you're fishing the pro-ams. Let's talk about that a little bit, and, the change up between going from teams to pro-ams, and how is it changing the way you fish in general, or is it just something that you're taking how you used to fish and modifying it to do, I guess to fish without another rod in the boat? How is that making you fish now?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, I fished with Chris Perez we still fish together all the time, but tournament stuff. He's doing really well in the team circuit. I mean, he won back to back tournaments on Clear Lake over like a month and a half span. So he's like, him and his new team partner Kent are like on fire. But as far as changing, it didn't change how like my style. I am power first, slow down second. So that's still my MO. But there are some intricacies to it, and understanding, hey, I don't have another rod. I need to be, when I go to these areas, I need to be more efficient. Budgeting fish, still trying to work that out. As I always seem to stumble on day 2.
Yeah.
So, but I would say it made me a better fisherman. I feel like over the past 2 years, I fished a lot more on my own. This year, obviously in the pro-ams, I am by far a better angler than I was 2 years ago. And that's just because you have to adapt, you have to learn. And if you're not learning, you're not growing. So it was just, minor changes. But as far as my style hasn't changed, it's
okay.
Trying to catch them on 20-pound or 80-pound braid. And if they don't bite that, then I'll bust out the spinning rod at the lakes.
Well, you talk about your style hasn't changed, but you also mentioned there that now you're learning to budget fish a little better. You're going from most team tournaments are either 1 or 2 days. Now you're going to the
Mhm.
pro-ams and they're 3 days. And like you said, man, day 2, I got to come up with some better fish, or I got to figure out how to manage fish. Is there a technique or a style, I guess, I don't know, maybe not a style, a way that you can see yourself going to where you're going to learn how to manage your fish a little better? It always been this, I go out, I catch what I can when I can, and now you've got to change all that up and learn how to adapt to, I need 15 fish, going into this
Yeah.
thing. How is that?
Well,
How
see,
is
and
that?
that's
How is that going to be your change?
so what's crazy, Ed, is like, so I'm not the guy that just goes out and like freak shows them. Chris and I were never those. Like, yeah, we had some tournaments. We weighed 30 something on 33 or 32 something on the Delta. I weighed 28 on the Delta at day 1 of the BAM. But what's crazy
Right.
is I'm not that guy typically. I'm the consistent guy. And what I've learned is I've had this happen to me twice in tournaments.
Mhm.
And like, so day 1 of the BAM, right? I had 28, basically 28 pounds by like 11:30. I stopped fishing.
Okay.
I ran away. I was like, I don't need any more. Like I caught my last like 5.5 or 6 pounder, and I was like, dude, I only had 7 bites all day, but I'm like, all right, we're getting out of here. And then the next day I go back to the same area and I catch 10 pounds, 11 pounds or whatever it was, And then that had the same thing happen to me in a different tournament with Chris. And so I mean, budgeting fish, I think I maybe tried to budget them too much. If that
Okay.
ever happens again, I'm not stopping. Like I'm gonna try it. Like, because every time I lay off my fish, it burns me the next day. And so on the next time that happens, or I have a big bag on day 1, I am not stopping. And I'm just going to figure it out. And if that burns me, then I'll have to find the middle ground and try to assess the situation. But at this point, it's kind of burned me. So, yeah, like I said, I'm not really the guy that goes out and weighs 30 pounds, every now and like every day. I'm the guy that's going to weigh 20, hovering around that top 10 line, hopefully, and then just do that every single day. That's my goal. But
Yeah, that's
sometimes things go differently.
well, and that's a great, it's great. I don't want to say it's great to hear it. It's interesting to hear how guys have to, as they start to come up. I mean, you're going to be, you're looking to make the Super 60, right? I mean, that's your end all goal at this
Yeah.
point is I want to make the Super 60. I want to be fishing against some of the top guys in the West, on the West Coast. And, the way this is going, and eventually it's going to be some of the top guys in the country, because there are people really interested in coming out and fishing that Super 60. Well, when I think it's interesting to see how guys like yourself, it's like you're coming from the pro-ams, you've got to qualify for that. So you're going to make the Super 60 through for the pro-ams. How you all of a sudden have to change your game to look at exactly how do I get to where I want to go. And just listening to the way you said some things and the way I feel like there's a metamorphosis that you're going to go through. And, I've seen it with guys like Colby Pearson. I've seen it, with some of these other, the Conrad Demekas, where they go out there and they're just really working hard and trying to change their game to where they can compete at that level. Do you see yourself on that path right now?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the end goal. I mean, to be like brutally honest,
Yeah.
and like transparent, the first pro-am that I fished was this year at Shasta, and we're at the restaurant, we're doing the anglers meeting, and I sit down at a table, right, and I'm hanging out with Dante Ray and Greg Gutierrez and Jeff Michaels are at the same table with me, and I'm like, dude, what am I doing here right now, right? I mean, what they're both. First of all, those guys are some, like, if not the best fishermen on Shasta. They are,
Right.
Up there, and Greg fished the Elite Series. I remember, I still to this day, and as a kid, would watch the Clear Lake Elite Series from back in 2007, where Greg was catching them on an osprey outside the creek, right? And just thinking, man, dude, like that's wild. And then, I kind of that first night, I was like, not intimidated, but I was like, oh, this is different, welcome to the friggin' show, Ryan. And then probably about, I think after day one, I had a decent bag, and you know, I've messed up big time. But then after that day, like it took me back to my baseball days, and like the things I would say to the kids I coach, because I still coach youth baseball, is, and it's what I told them. It's like, don't ever be afraid of anybody. You can respect them, but you always have to believe that you are the baddest dude on the planet. And, you know, was I always? No. Am I? Absolutely not. But like, if you don't carry that confidence,
Right.
you know, then you're probably not going to be successful. So that was a big learning experience for me. But now, you know, and I'm not saying like this year is like a telltale sign of how my future is going to go, but being able to have the successes that I've had this year, you know, definitely helped me with confidence. Now, I'm not approaching any event with arrogance or talking, you know, speaking with anybody with like having arrogance in myself, but just having that confidence and the success to let me know that I can do this. I can compete against the best anglers in the West Coast. Kind of just fuels me more. And I know like if I'm lucky enough to qualify for the Super 60 and able, you know, to do all that, I definitely believe I can compete with these guys. You know, I might not win, but I'm going to be competitive. So,
yeah, that's a tough one. You know, it's and I'll ask you this question because I think it's very, you're in the position where you have, you know, you work for the state, you are pretty much a California guy. I mean, you know, you're I don't want to say stuck here, but you're kind of stuck here, right? I mean, this is your life's here. What does this
yeah.
what does this whole thing mean to you that you don't have to travel to, you know, Alabama, the east, the southeast, to compete against some of the best in the world? You can be here, you know, the Super 60 coming out here, making a good living. There's big money on the line, and it's only going to get better. You know, I mean, $2,500 to win 50,000. What does that kind of mean to you when you're sitting here going, you know, I can compete against these guys, but at the same time, there's a place for me to compete against the top out here on the West and make a decent living. What is this? What is this for you? Is it a dream come true that, you know, you don't have to go anywhere? You can actually do it here?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you know, I've thought, you know, I've thought about it, you know, as far as, you know, what would happen if I did go back east, you know, and, you know, just
Right.
thoughts, you play through these scenarios, and I'm not saying it's an attainable task. But, you know, my thing ever since I began fishing team tournaments was I just want to fish against the most competitive and the best anglers that I can. And, you know, growing up, first getting into it, I hated seeing these organizations that were putting on team tournaments kicking guys out. Like I remember I sat in a meeting and they kicked out from a team tournament my buddy Michael Birch and his wife at the time. And I was like, man, like yeah, he's really good on the Delta.
Right.
But like that's why I'm here. I want to take my shots at that guy. And you know, now being in a different financial position and different, you know, level of skill within, you know, for fishing, you know, now I want to take my shots at Ken. I want to take my shots at Ish and Greg and so on. And all these guys, I mean, there's not a weak link out there on the pro-am. So
there is not.
being able to compete against these guys, you know, like that's all I want, you know. And as far as, yeah, like you said, my life is here in California. I work for the state. You know, if I did go back east, it would be hard. There's not a lot of money in like actual professional fishing. You know, there's a top percentage of those guys making a really good living. But, you know, for me, I'm a type 1 diabetic. State healthcare and benefits are really important to me. So, you know, like, you know, if I was a type 1 on my own, you know, without state benefits, it would be really costly. So just, you know, little things like that. But like you said, you know, BAM, you know, this year for me has done a great job, you know, allowing me to fish against some of the top anglers in the West, you know, guys that have fished at the highest possible level in all of bass fishing. And I get to stand in the bump tanks next to these guys competing against them. So I would definitely say I really, really, really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's always amazing. You know, I get to stand up the stage. I get to bring all these guys up, and it's one of those things. I absolutely enjoy that as well. Seeing, like you said, some of the top pros, not just in the West, but in the country that you know, that have competed at the highest levels, and now we're up there with them, and we're seeing this. So, you know, let's get a little bit back to fishing here, and you know, and I'll, you know, we have like I said, we have lakes coming up like Berryessa and and we have, this next one coming up right now, which is the Orville Afterbay. Have you got to fish there yet?
Yeah, I've been to the Afterbay a few times. It's a really cool fishery. It's very intricate,
Right.
even though it doesn't look like it. But super interesting. I'm curious to see what the weights come out like, because I think depending on the wet, I think it could be really good. But I think there's going to be a big separation between the top and the bottom.
Okay. Yeah, like guys are going to go out, swing for the fences, and either hit that home run or not. Is that basically right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
What would you? I mean, and you're not fishing it. This is the pro tour.
No.
So, um,
Yep.
what is it that you would go out there if you were going to attack this lake right now and just kind of look at it? What would you want to be throwing? And two, what kind of weight would you be looking for per day to make that top 10?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning to the BAM Pod tonight. I hope you're enjoying the show. But right now, we're going to take a commercial break and talk to you a little bit about Excel Marketing LLC. They're your local TV expert, and they have something to tell you about Dish TV. If technology, value, and customer satisfaction are important to you, then it's time to cut the cable cord once and for all. Upgrade your TV experience and start saving with Dish today. Call Excel Marketing LLC at 209-542-4129 or visit them on the web at excel.getdish.com. They're Excel Marketing LLC, your locally owned, operated, and trusted satellite TV experts. Now, back to the BAM Pod.
Afterbay can be so stingy, but so good. It's it's one of those places. It's feast or famine. Keep in mind. So the Afterbay is all largemouth. There's not a lot of shad in there, so their primary forage is going to be bluegill, maybe some crawfish, crawdads. So for me, and especially since there's tules and grass, it's going to be a flip rod, and it's going to be a bladed jig like the Shock Blade Pro. Green pumpkin, a little bit of chartreuse. But those would be my weapons of choice. I don't know about the numbers deal. Keep that in mind. I've never fished in your guys' format, and that's a whole new thing.
Right.
So I'm going to stay away from the numbers.
Right.
But if a 5 bass limit, 16, 17 a day is not unattainable. It just depends on how they want to react with this weather, and the
Right.
Afterbay, because of my line of work, the Afterbay is so different because water flows can vary so vastly. And that lake fluctuates a lot. And for them, a lot could be 6 inches, it could be 2 feet. And it all depends on what they're doing with the dam up above it, with Orville Dam.
Right.
Then you got Thermalito Forebay, the diversion dam. And if they're perhaps doing inspections on these dams, or they're doing field work and they're testing different things, it could affect the flow of water and how much water's in that lake. So we got cooling temps, but we're going to a warming trend later in the week. But there could also be, you mix in strange water flows that could happen. Oh, you don't even know. And
Right.
it's just so different. But if everything were to stay stable with the water, I think 15 to 16, somebody might pop an 18, but I think for the most part, the leader will have 16 a day, 15 and a half.
Okay, I wrote that down, and we have that up recorded, so we know what Ryan Hall's thinking.
Right.
But now what's the next pro-am coming up? This is I've got a lot on my mind.
Clear Lake.
Clear Lake
Yeah,
is the next
Clear
one
Lake in
coming up.
October.
And we're looking at October for Clear Lake. Now, that's going to be a big one. I know that lake can be very good that time of year, and again, it can also be very stingy. You're going into that. You don't have to give up anything right now. It's still a little ways out, but how are you thinking about attacking that kind of water with this? This is all into this fall thing. We're looking at major transitions happening. I just drove by that lake. The algae bloom was up pretty good. As I came back by, it had already settled a little bit. There's some weird things going on out there. What is it in the fall that lakes like that are so heavy grass, so heavy, big, natural, not deep lakes? What are you thinking with something like that? Like, I mean, is it such a thing as, 30, I've heard of 35, 40 pounds coming out of there for a 2-day event. Is 25, 30 a day in there possible for the fall?
Oh, 100%. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Like Clear Lake right now is stupid. It's unreal right now.
Okay.
I mean, there you got like I've been spending a lot of time on the south end of the lake in the deeper stuff, just getting comfortable. You got guys catching them. You got guys catching 26 pounds, however they want. I mean, I went out for 20 minutes or 20 minutes, 2 hours with Bob Tyler, and we filmed a YouTube video for his channel. And in 2 hours, we had like 20 pounds, and it was blowing 20 miles an hour. So all we got to do was fish one spot.
Wow.
Like it wasn't like a juice hole by any means. It was just that's where we got to fish, and we caught them. There's just Clear Lake for me to be successful there right now is going to need to toughen up. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping it gets really stingy. I'm hoping because it right now it's fishing so good that anybody can go out and catch them however they want and put together a really big bag. And I don't like that. I want it to be a grinder. I want it to be cold. I want it to be windy. I want it to be raining, and I want to let guys get beat down mentally to help me gain an edge. That's what I'm hoping for.
Okay, yeah, it's funny you say it like that because there's another guy out there on the tour who talks just that way, and that's Greg Gutierrez, and he says the same thing.
That's funny.
He loves it when it's tougher, right? And
yeah,
like you said, the way you just put it, you like to see guys go out there and it's like I can't figure it out, I can't get through this. What about that really makes you the fall is that way? I mean, I think winter and fall, those are the two. When I think of really tough changing conditions, those are the two that I believe make it, like you said earlier, it's just it changes so quick, so fast. What is it about that kind of fishing that really, really excites you? The tough fishing.
It's not that it excites me. I'm like everybody else. I want to show up at the lake, put the trolling motor down, and go blast 30 pounds every time. But from a competitive standpoint, I was lucky enough. I played baseball for 20 something years of my life, and baseball. If you're a baseball fan, anybody out there, baseball is a game of failure. You go to hit. If you get a hit 3 out of every 10 times, you're in the Hall of Fame in the major leagues. So right. Dealing with failure and adversity and grinding. I mean, Major League Baseball plays like what was I forgot? God, why am I drawing a blank? Like 162 games in like a 6-month span.
Right.
They have like 8 off days in an entire year. So like being a grinder and having to overcome adversity and get past mental blocks, it's like something that's ingrained into me. I don't think I'm the best angler out there, but if there's a way for me to gain an edge, a lot of guys can't handle that kind of adversity, being uncomfortable, whether, it's blowing 30 miles an hour or raining sideways or 110 degrees, anything that makes for adverse conditions, I feel like I handle very well mentally. So I think that's just a competitive edge for me. And then I also look at like my track record, and these wins or these successful events that I've had have all come when the body of water is fishing stingy. Like Oroville was not like, my first top 10 this year was not wide open. Like the guys that had it figured out were catching them, but it wasn't wide open. The Delta by no means was fishing good. But I was able to figure that out a little bit. And then even like the win I had at Clear Lake back with Chris, it was really tough, and it toughened up at 9 o'clock, and we made one adjustment, and then we started catching weight. So I just think when it gets tough, I just do a little better, whether that be just having a little more mental strength or being able just to deal with being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Whatever it may be. I think that's just something I'm good at.
Florida. The name alone evokes thoughts of sun, sand, and giant bass. Florida's unique ecosystems make it the world's best bass fishing destination. Whether you're a seasoned pro or a rookie to the sport, Florida offers endless fishing opportunities. The best part? You can catch giant bass year-round in any of the many freshwater bodies across the state. To learn more, visit mydfwc.com/trophy bass. Florida. Make your bass dreams come true.
All right. I mean, that's the best I've heard it put, really, is that it's not about the fact that you want it to be tough fishing necessarily, but because you do want to catch them, but it's one of those things that you want it tough. You kind of want it tough for everybody so that you can excel at your level. And that's a great way to look at it. And and I think it's one of those, when I talk to people that go out and have a tough time on the water, or are, guys like yourself that are able to and have the ability to go out and fish, more than once or twice a week, to go to a tournament or go out and just, and practice and fish a lot, compared to a guy who maybe gets out there once or twice a month.
Right.
To hear that, it's going to be a grind out there. What is it, that one factor that you could tell somebody, and it's like, hey, I know you're going out, you're probably going to go out there once or twice or whatever a month, and you might have a bad day. Is there something you can tell that guy, that lady, that kid that's going out, and say, hey, you know what? Put your head down, try a few things and do this, and maybe it can change your game out there for the day?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. One, I would say the first thing is don't fish scared. I met Gary Dobbins when I was 10 years old. My dad ended up buying his boat back in 2001. And I remember Gary telling, don't fish chicken. That was like his thing. That was like the worst Gary impression ever.
Right.
But, but like that resonated with me. And I don't know if that molded my style, but, don't fish scared, and it's, if something's not going right, change it. Do something different, and especially, and so this is going to come up tomorrow when I'm speaking with the Folsom High School bass team, is they're going out to the Delta, and because most of these kids are reservoir kids, when it gets tough, it's going to be 10 o'clock. They're probably going to have one 13-incher in the box. Something's going to happen. The first thing they're going to do is pick up a spinning rod with a drop shot. I'm sorry, on the Delta, you are not going to win, and you're not going to cash a check. So don't fish scared. Attack everything you do with confidence. If they're not biting a chatterbait, switch to a spinnerbait. If they're not biting a spinnerbait, switch to a crankbait. If they're not biting a crankbait, switch to an A-rig. If they're not biting that, keep trying something different. Because even, in life, in baseball, whatever, like if your swing's not right, and I tell this to my kids all the time, hey, if your swing's not right, try it this way. Try it again. If it doesn't work, try it again a different way. Oh, you did it right that way? Try that. Do it again. And then, you do it over and over again. Try it again. Do it right. Try to do that again. And then, you kind of piece it together and you get that feel. You find out what it is you're missing. So just keep trying. Try it again a different way until you get it right.
Yeah, that's good points. Good words out there for people who are, because this is kind of like what you said with baseball. Bass fishing is the same way. You're not going to have a great day every time you go out. It just doesn't happen. You're going to lose more than you're going to win. You're going to have tough days more than you're going to have great days, but embrace the great days and learn how to change that, the way you're fishing. And I think that's what you mostly just said right now, is don't go out there, fishing scared is like what you said, hey, I think I should be able to catch them on a crankbait or this, but I'm not. So I'm going to go to something I know I can catch them on. Well, that's falling into that bad habit that you've always had. And maybe you still have a bad day and you just went, well, if they're not biting that, they're just not going to bite. And I've actually heard people say that. Well, if they're not biting a drop shot, then they're just not going to bite anything. Well, that's not true by any stretch of the imagination. And the guy that comes in and, drops 30 pounds on the scale goes, yeah, they weren't biting either one of those. You're right.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I look at this time of year, especially, like you said, I mean, there's some days where like you're talking about, Clear Lake is on fire right now. Well, but how long is that going to last? If I jump on
hopefully not much longer.
Right. It's like if I jump my boat right now, or jump my truck right now, tow my boat over there and go fishing, is it still going to be on fire? It's like, who knows? Probably not. That's just how my luck works,
Right.
right? But it's
Right.
one of the but it's one of those things. It's like, oh yeah, well, the wind changed yesterday, and that whole fish that we were catching 30 of them a day, yeah, that died. You could only catch one. Okay.
Right.
So those are the adjustments you got to make. And especially like you said, in fall, which is what, we're kind of talking about, is having different ways. Is there anything you do in the fall when you start talking about a chatterbait, you start talking about spinnerbait, you start talking about even punching? Is there anything you do to those baits, or any way you fish them differently in the fall than you do maybe in the spring or summer?
Oh man, maybe a slight color change, but not.
Okay.
To be honest, not really. I mean, you look at it. You look at a chatterbait, or even a chatterbait or a spinnerbait,
Okay.
right? With the exception of the delta, because the delta you're going to mix in red to the equation. But if you're at any other body of water but the delta, where the crawdad population is not that heavy, I
Mhm.
mean, what are these fish eating when you're imitating a fish?
Right.
Other than the swim bait, they're eating shad, they're eating bluegill.
Okay.
So I mean, so realistically, you're going to throw a white or a variation of white, like a spinnerbait. To be like, I think no matter where you go across the United States, a chartreuse and white spinnerbait will catch them at any body of water. And if you're throwing a chatterbait or a bladed jig, and so you're going to mimic bluegill. So you're going to throw, some type of green pumpkin, something that looks like a bluegill, or you're going to mimic a shad. So it's white. Or some variation of white. I think the biggest thing just comes down to like seeing what their forage is. So if the shad aren't up, but the bluegill are, well, I'm going to go mimic a bluegill, or
Right.
if the water's super, super clean, I'm not going to typically going to go throw the super robust, bold, heavy white, heavy chartreuse spinnerbait. I'm probably going to go dumb it down, and pick up, get one of my other my other Picasso spinnerbaits out it's like a little more translucent, or maybe it's got translucent white with just a touch of chartreuse. I mean, it's about it. I don't really fish them differently. I would say I just keep them coming.
Okay. So I mean, that's important, to tell people that you can still fish the baits you want to fish. You just want to maybe look at what colors you have, and understand the lake a little bit more. And I think that'll drive people to do that too. Is a couple of things you said right there were understanding. It's like, oh, it's clear, the water's clear. Okay, well, I need something that's not super super bright. I need something that's a little more
Yeah.
subtle, there's bluegill in this body of water. I need to make sure that I'm throwing something that mimics a bluegill rather than a shad. If there's no shad in here, why throw something that's a shad? That makes sense.
Like the afterbay.
Right. Exactly. Right. I mean, now I'm guessing that there's pond smelt in there at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're coming down. So is that something? And there's one thing that you said in there that back a ways now is, you match the hatch. You want to be what's on there. This time of year, is the bait big or small? What are you trying to match?
It depends on your forage.
Okay.
It
So
honestly,
if you've got
it depends on the forage.
let's say you got pond smelt right now. When did they spawn, and how big are they going to get over the course of this time that they're going out there? And then if you have super small bait, what are you doing to fish for what do you use to fish for that?
I mean, one, I hate fishing for fish that are on super small bait, but that is that's not always, but very often the case in the fall, especially in like reservoirs at Oroville and like Folsom. And I don't know why it's so small, if they spawn early and they're still in their growth phase. But if I, speaking of spinner baits, I love throwing a spinnerbait. I love it. So understanding your spinnerbait. So I have a box. I have 3 boxes of spinnerbaits because I'm a junkie. I have a Delta box. I have a Lake box, and I have a Finesse box. And the thing about the spinnerbait is, I'm lucky that I work with Picasso. So they have spinnerbaits with really big blades, and they have ones with really small blades. When I get into that situation where the bait's small in the fall, typically the water's really clean too. So I don't want something that's so obtrusive or intrusive and it's like bold. I'm gonna grab my spinner bait out that's got a little thinner gauge wire. It's got smaller willow blades, something that's more closer to what they're actually eating.
Okay. I mean, that's matching the hatch at the level you can without going, yeah, last show we had some extremes, but this is that time of year, and that's kind of what I was looking for is, the bait. When I see bait this time of year, you can be really small, like 1 inch, half inch. There's some tiny bait out there right now. And when you're talking about a lake like Oroville that has pond smelt on it, Shasta has pond smelt on it, a pond smelt is never not a very big bait anyways. It's not like a shad where you have, some shad to get up there to pretty big sizes, 3, 4, 5 inches. The pond smelts stay pretty small, like
pretty like 2 inches, right?
Right, 2-inch long bait that's really thin. I feel like even trying to match them with a robo worm is really tough. But that's what I'm kind of looking at is, and that's what I want to tell people. It's like, hey, there are some baits out there still in that power fishing way that you can match those baits and go out there and still have good days on that water. I mean, Shasta's got some of the shad in it. Orville does not. Orville's a tough one. It's not one that's loaded with big shad at all. Do you ever target and look for like the kokanee eaters out there?
When it presents itself, like we talked about earlier, I'm not like, I can swim bait fish, but it's not my strongest tool in the bag. If I'll keep it in mind, but typically it's the I struggle to follow a trout pattern because they move so much. Like I said earlier, I'm typically more of a consistent guy. So when I get on those bites where the trout or kokanee, they're very pelagic. They move around. One day they're here, the next day they're 2 miles away. It's kind of hard to stay on that for an extended period of time. And just my style of fishing, to be honest, it takes a long time to fish a swim bait. The cast to the time you get to make the next cast is a long time. And I don't think I have ADD, but I might have ADD. That it's too long of a time between casts for me.
Right.
So it's not a bait a bite I typically hunt, but it is something I'm aware of. Like there's been times where I pull up in Shasta and I'm like, I can see them and I'm like, oh, let's pull it out, and maybe get a bite or two here and there, but on the swimmer, but it's not something I hunt.
Okay, and I'll ask you this question because we're getting towards the end of the show, but I'm asking you this one and let you go on this a little bit. But there are smallmouth out there, there's spotted bass out there, and there are largemouth out there. You have the fall, you're fishing in the fall. Which one are you going to spend the most time hunting for?
Oh, without a doubt, the largemouth.
Yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love catching smallmouth. Spots are cool. They're cool, I guess, But and I love smallmouth because we don't get to do it much here.
Right.
But there's something about a largemouth that just fires me up. The baits they eat. Like it's hard for me. It's really hard to beat a punch bite. You're like I always tell. It's like everything. You mean
you're
calm,
you're not
nice.
You're not punching for spots. You're not punching for spots.
I've done it. Don't think I haven't done it. No, there's something about, just, peacefully going down a grass line or a mat and it's just calm. And then all of a sudden something jumps out and rocks you out the other end of your line. And then it's like Metallica came in and played a 20-second song, like as you're fighting this thing into the boat, like there's just that adrenaline rush that gets me going, fires me up.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we're wrapping up this show. It's definitely been a good one. I'm going to use something that Mark gave me. Ryan just went out there and he dropped a bunch of nuggets for you guys. And if you haven't listened to the show very well, go ahead and rewind that thing, man, and listen to it again. But right now, I'm going to turn this over to Ryan. I like to say this. You've just heard everything he had to do. He just dropped all this information on you. And some people might be like, I don't even know who this guy is. So, Ryan, this is your time to shine, man. Tell everybody who you are, where they can find you, where they can see you on social, where they can see you at your next tournament. And here it is, bud. It's all you.
Yeah, thank you. So Ryan Hall, obviously, appreciate you guys listening. And if you guys want to follow me on social media, all of my social media is at Ryan Hall Fishing. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, you name it, TikTok. It's all there. And then if you guys are looking for more information about like fishing or fall fishing, trying to get some more nuggets, make sure to check out rbbass.com. If you've ever seen my boat out on the water, you see that big RB Bass sticker on the side of it. That is a free fishing and outdoors reference page. So there's a bunch of information. We got tips, tackle tips, hunting tips, fishing tips, reports, everything you can think of outdoors related is going to be on there, from guys that are very, very experienced in those industries. So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys listening. If you guys have questions and want to ask me, feel free. You can message me on my social media or send me an email, which is ryanhallfishing@gmail.com. But thanks again for listening, and hopefully I see you guys out on the water. And if you do, don't be afraid to come up and say hi.
All right, Ryan, thanks for coming on and doing this, man, and giving out some good knowledge. I mean, like I say, if you didn't hear it and you didn't, you missed something, go back and listen to it again, because Ryan put out some great information out there. Fall fishing is one of those times that some guys love, some guys hate. Obviously, if it gets a little tougher, Ryan's going to be out there and be happy about it. So we'll pray for storms.
Right.
You've got Clear Lake coming up there in October. Should be a great event to watch. I hope everybody tunes in and watches some of the events that the BAM Show's been putting on. And Ryan, I hope we get to see you on the Pro Tour, man. And you'd be a great guy to be up there watching in your transition and how you become a pro angler, man. It'd be great to see. So yeah, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, and I'll do it anytime you guys want me on. I really appreciate it. It was a great time.
Well, there's one way to guarantee you get on here. Go out and win a tournament. And when you do win that next Pro-Am out there on Clear Lake, you come back on the show. We talk about how you did it out there. So yeah, that's how you get on. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. I hope you really enjoyed the show. It was a good one out there. And in a couple weeks, we've got another angler coming on. So it'll be a good one. All right. Thanks for tuning in.